Let's hear her. It's Nolitha, please.
Good morning. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you to the two program directors who have just set me up, changing my whole presentation to focus on youth and women, when in my life, because I was taught by Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka that these are no parallel streams, it's an integrated approach. So definitely women and young people are integral to this strategy that we're talking to. Your Excellencies, especially Minister Gwede Mantashe of Department of Mineral Resources and Energy of South Africa, Honorable former Deputy President of South Africa, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and as already indicated, the former Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, and I would dare say one of the people who's responsible for me standing here today, because 20 years ago, she just told the industry that as a minimum, get 100 women underground to work underground. And the CEOs all went berserk, as we say in our language, saying, how do we get women to be underground, let alone 100? And whilst they were still looking at that, then we also had a mining charter which had targets. And so in 1999, I had a very agitated and keen CEO called Bernard Swanepoel, who was looking for a non-executive director. And the more I told him that I was not a miner, the more he told me that, but Phumzile Ngcuka says, you can be a miner, so I want you to be on my board. And so I joined the board of Harmony Gold Mines then, and that was my introduction to mining, which today I call my second home, Minister. And the ministers and deputy ministers from other countries, sister countries, DRC, Namibia, and Mozambique, captains of industries and senior leaders from government and public sector, and specifically also deputy ministers here, Dr. Nobashe Ngabane, and Deputy Minister Pinky Kekana, the DG of Mineral Resources and Energy, who's an important person in our lives, DG Mbele, and also Dr. Clarence Chitereke, thank you, who is the CEO of the African Critical Minerals Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning. As it's already been said, this is a conference whose time has come. The Critical Minerals Summit is a good reminder of the pivotal role of mining in developing economies and growing countries. And over the years, with the progress in technology and science, we continue to unlock the treasures of the earth in a way that continues to enhance civilization and prosperity of mankind. As someone recently said, and I think Madam Mlambo-Ngcuka has said as well, we are now mining the periodic table block by block, and therefore I really would like to congratulate the DMRE and the African Critical Minerals Summit organizers for this inaugural event. From the Minerals Council, we are definitely behind you and are grateful that you have included us as part of this first session. I was asked to talk about the outlook of mining. So let's see if this works. Can I please have the slides? There we've got it. We've often had miners say in defense of mining, if it is not grown, then it is mined. And truly, when we think about everything that is done in the world, product or process, if it's truly not coming from the ground as something that was part of agriculture, it definitely comes from mining and has to be mined. And therefore, as we talk about the critical minerals, we need to talk about how we do that and also the impact of that process to make sure that it's much more sustainable going forward. As a prelude to any discussion on critical minerals outlook, it is also necessary that we understand what they are, and a lot has been said about that, because these are either metallic or non-metallic minerals that a government has assessed to be strategically important to their nation in terms of energy security, defense and national security, their industries, and in the development of new technologies. Recently, these have been linked to the support and enablement of society to transition to a low-carbon economy and therefore mitigate the climate change challenges that we all face today. Each country has its own list of minerals it considers critical, as has been indicated, and while there are overlaps, there are important differences in these assessments. Underlying those strategic reasons is the assessment of the security of supply and the potential for disruption to supply. For example, sourcing any critical mineral from a single source is regarded as highly risky. An important consideration for countries and companies producing what are now regarded as critical minerals is that technological developments are incredibly rapid, with research going into alternative minerals, looking for substitutes where you cannot find what you need, or to shift to less expensive single source origin, or rare minerals with the intention of reducing risk or boosting efficiencies. So what is considered a critical mineral today can quickly become not so critical based on demand and supply, which is an important consideration in developing national strategies and policies around critical minerals. Countries that are vigorously jockeying for position in the race for critical minerals, with governments pouring funds into exploration and production of these minerals, or forming alliances even, and partnerships to ensure uninterrupted supply chains is important. No country can go it alone on critical minerals, as extraction, processing, refining, my slides have been moving by themselves, but that's fine, we'll leave that. As extraction, processing, refining, and end-use technologies change or need large investments to ensure a saleable end product. Artificial barriers to trade and investment also distort the market and serve to encourage research and development of alternative minerals and applications. Clearly, in this regard, national interests seem to determine what is critical minerals for most countries. Africa is undoubtedly one of the world's mineral treasure troves, and as such, we have an important role to play in the global shift into critical minerals. However, while we consider the obvious uses of critical minerals in our just energy transition with solar, wind, and batteries, there is a far broader spectrum of applications we must also consider. We must heed the lessons of the past and not just be a supplier of raw minerals. Through strategic partnerships and investments, we must leverage our minerals endowments to attract new industries and businesses into the continent, creating jobs, encouraging skilled employment, the creation of wealth and a better life for all citizens. Africa has any number of industrial minerals that must be used to improve our infrastructure, such as rail, roads, ports, water reticulation, and electricity transmission. These infrastructural requirements not only create a local market for our minerals, but they are also underpinning our economic growth, productive agricultural sector through the smart use of fertilizers made with the phosphates we have is another example of the important minerals we have and which will be critical for the future of our country. An example for South Africa is that South Africa is rich in platinum group metals, which are essential in the establishment of a green hydrogen economy. And work has started in the Minerals Council and the Energy Council with its member companies to determine the role that the mining industry can play in the green hydrogen economy and how it can best use the clean sources of energy to decarbonize its operations. It is essential that research, development, and innovation into new technologies and the best use of our mineral endowments is encouraged. This needs partnerships between the government, academic sector, and the private sector to pool our intellectual capital through incentives, subsidies, and support. We cannot afford to be left behind or start late in the global race for a greener future or smart uses of our minerals. Having said this, I came across this very interesting slide. Even though it's not clear, I hope you will see the colors very clearly. A few countries dominate key critical minerals, even though in some instances they may not necessarily be mining. If we consider this graph compiled by Bloomberg, we can see how concentrated the production of a broader range of key minerals is, with a handful of countries dominating the supply of the minerals used in battery technologies and clean energy applications and transmission. As can be seen in these two graphs, China is a big player in refining supply. That's the right-hand side of the graph, of the 8 minerals on the right side. But it is not a dominant source of those minerals, which needs to be refined. So when you look on the right-hand side in terms of refined supply, you can see there's lithium, there's rare earths, there's graphite, there's cobalt, aluminum, nickel, steel, and copper, which China is dominant in terms of refining. Whereas in terms of actual mining, lithium, Australia, Chile, and China are at the top. Rare earths, you've got China. Graphite, you've got China. Cobalt, as we have heard, is DRC. Almost 70% of the world's global resources are at the DRC. And you can see right down there that for us as Africa, it's cobalt and copper in the main that we feature, but obviously there are other minerals that we need to be working on closely to ensure that we develop further. This slide shows you that even though China is a dominant player in minerals, important to the energy sector, The supply of critical minerals is a global matter, as can be seen in the sources of critical minerals to the European Union. The one continent that is perhaps not as engaged as it could be in this instance is Africa. You can see right down in Africa, there's less that you can see that is going into the EU. And also, what is interesting is that the EU doesn't seem to have a lot of mining happening. It's happening elsewhere in the world, but the resources are going towards that place. So what do we do with the fact that Africa is a source of critical minerals? Whilst we are an important source of minerals like cobalt, copper, manganese, platinum group metals, and others, we are not yet at our full potential as we do not process and refine to full capacity, what has been said by our two previous speakers. And this is a huge opportunity for beneficiation strategy. And for South Africa in particular, we do need our industrial strategy, Minister, to be very clear, because that industrial strategy will then indicate what and where and how we focus in terms of our own resources in the national interest. Just another indication in terms of where the potential of Africa lies that we believe can still be met. The orange graph there is the share of global investments that go into exploration. And you can see as the continent, we simply are not yet fully meeting that particular potential. And maybe in a good way, it's good that we're having this conversation before we have met those global supplies, so that as we are saying that Africa can really reset its strategy and vision of how these critical minerals need to be utilized, including Africa as part of that process. If we narrowed that graph down to just South Africa, the decline in the country's share of global exploration spending is dramatic and falling to less than 1% in the last 20 years, from more than 5% since 2004 rather. This is extremely worrying for the mining industry and our future, the jobs we have, the communities that could benefit, and the fiscus. Every ounce or ton taken out of the ground must be replaced through exploration, otherwise the industry will eventually struggle to matter going forward. Mining is critical to our greener future, and South Africa must not be left behind. And we have to make sure that we unlock the exploration, because that will be a game changer. We must address some of the underlying causes for the decline in exploration from where we sit as industry. Of importance is that we need a functional, transparent, off-the-shelf cadastral system, DG, that is loaded with geological maps and reduces human intervention and possible corruption to a minimum. South Africa is lagging the world in the digital management of its minerals, and it is urgent that we have a proven system as soon as possible. Secondly, the backlog of more than 5,000 mining, prospecting, and permit applications in the DMRE has been a long-standing blockage to investments in exploration and mining, and therefore it's something that we need to continue to chip off and improve. And thirdly, investors making long-term decisions about where to put their money demand a predictable regulatory environment with a minimum of red tape and bureaucratic delays. And Minister, I haven't said anything about regulatory because we know our regulatory framework is predictable. I'm just saying It's the demand around making sure that the environment with red tape and bureaucratic delays is minimized. We note that the DMRE has started a review of the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act with the intention of amending the Act. And we will support and interact closely with the regulator to ensure that South Africa has the best possible regulations that will attract investment, stimulate job creation, and encourage refining and beneficiation, including the sustainable economic growth of the sector. For example, the Minerals Council and the DMRE are now working together on tax incentive proposals for the National Treasury to consider implementing to encourage investment in exploration. This is in its very early stages, but we've seen the success stories in other jurisdictions like Canada, Australia, and others, where tax incentives have contributed to the discovery of new minerals and strong mining industries. The Minerals Council, through Business for South Africa, is also working closely with organized business in the partnerships initiatives with the presidency and various ministries to address logistics, energy, and crime and corruption. Business sees these three issues as key issues that are constraining the economy and contributing to negative perceptions about South Africa as an investment destination. While it is still early in the process, we are encouraged by the response from the government to the partnerships. Business is willing to play its part as a partner with its resources and skills to address these three areas along with the relevant ministries and state-owned entities. We have seen significant structural reforms in the energy sector so far, with the private sector playing an important role in the development and installation of renewable energy sources. Private sector participation in rail and ports will unlock the bottlenecks that are costing the economy billions of rands in lost exports and imports. The private sector stands ready to engage the government on its critical mineral strategy with investor-friendly policies and decisions around the definition of critical minerals and understanding the market forces driving current and future demand for these minerals. We are clear that South Africa must use its minerals to the benefit of its citizens, to improve their lives, create jobs, encourage education and skills development, and to create a thriving economy. Further, South Africa must leverage its partnership with the rest of the African continent to identify synergies that will benefit every one of us. Minister Mantashe, the African mining vision that you referred to earlier on, we're hoping that it will be realized sooner than later, because that is what will make sure that we are all aligned. The role of strategic partnerships, whether they're local or with foreign investments, are important for exploration, extraction, processing, and industrialization of these minerals, and it should be encouraged as much as is possible. South Africa, which for decades was known as the world's largest gold producer, is host to other fabulous mineral deposits as well, with the biggest known resources of PGMs, chrome, and manganese, amongst others. And the list can be really endless, but I just wanted to highlight those and also talk to the issue around the fact that with the inland mineral deposits that we have as a country, infrastructure development is essential. As you can see, our mineral deposits tend to lie inland and far from ports and industrial hubs. The need for efficient and productive railways cannot be underestimated when it comes to the movement of bulk minerals. It is cheaper and more environmentally friendly than road transportation, which destroys the country's roads and causes enormous disruptions to communities and other road users. Our ports serve both the Indian and Atlantic Oceans, giving us access to markets in the east, west, and north. The development of an electricity transmission network, as well as investments in the renewable energy sources, particularly in the remoter parts of our country, are equally as important. The map shows the concentration of deposits in the northeast of South Africa. The Northern Cape is a truly unexplored frontier, with zinc and copper deposits coming into production and rich prospectivity for other minerals. Mining can be a catalyst for economic growth and development, because with infrastructure development, that will unlock a lot of growth and jobs, as well as innovation that is needed for the country. In closing, what is the outlook from where we sit? As I had said, if it's not grown, it is mined. Therefore, we need to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row as a continent to be in a position where we can be able to unlock these opportunities. Key is security of supply. That security of supply doesn't mean that it's security of supply for the others who are out there, but it should be also security of supply for us as a continent first, before we can export. Secondly, partnerships and collaborations will unlock the value for the continent. Thirdly, as I have indicated, exploration dollars will be a game changer. And fourthly, research and development will lead to enhanced innovation and therefore improve our engagements when it comes to ESG. Africa must not be left behind in this transition. It is truly crucial that we develop a coherent critical mineral strategy for the continent with bold policy shifts that will make sure that mining continues to matter. Thank you very much.